You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
That's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to Making Tracks and a very special episode brought to you from the National Space Centre in Leicester. This was the location for Return of the Garrison, which took place on the 17th and 18th of September. Myself and Mark Mulcaster were there. I was there for Fantha Tracks along with Paul Naylor. Mark was there representing the Rebel Legion, and together me and Mark hosted 2 episodes of Making Tracks live in the Sir Patrick Moore Planetarium in front of a packed audience. You'll hear them both today, so sit back, have a listen. This is me and Mark doing Making Tracks live, part of Return of the Garrison.
Afternoon, everybody. How are we doing? You're doing good, are we? Excellent. Have you all had a fun day today? Wicked. Right, we're just going to get settled, so, you know.
We're going to pretend to look professional and know what we're talking about. It's all a lie.
It's all a load of simple tricks and nonsense. Anybody? Who said that? Anybody?
You just did.
Anybody? Thank you. Thank you very much. Man by the bright light over there. So it's like a bit like being interrogated.
It's a proper spotlight,
isn't it?
I was going to make a Star Trek joke, I won't, but there are just 2 lights.
Right.
We're Mark and Mark. We're Making Tracks. We're part of Fantha Tracks. If you've ever heard of Fantha Tracks, wonderful. If you haven't, there were badges on the table, but we seem to have shifted them all today.
That's pretty impressive, dude. Yeah. You know, bearing how long you've actually had that bag of badges, you know, it's been...
Yeah. Yeah. I should have brought more. It's my bad.
Copyright LFL 2005, just saying, you know, so...
We're here to talk about, believe it or not, Star Wars. If anybody listens to the podcast, apologies in advance, but if you listen to the podcast, generally we don't do much prep. We just start rolling and see where the conversation goes. So we thought, well, we're here in Leicester first things first.
Yeah.
And National Space Centre, not been here for a while. When was the last time there was a Garrison event? And when was the last time you were here? Because you're an actual proper Star Wars fan.
Apparently, I am a proper Star Wars fan. I think I was here, well, it would have been 2018, because we didn't get a chance in 2019, did we? You know, so lockdown happened in March. So, yeah, 2018, yeah, I am a member of the Rebel Legion, and, in fact, a member of the Mando Mercs, and, in fact, a member of the 501st UK Garrison. So I'm a costumer. So well done me. But, yes, I actually run the Rebel Legion Elstree base, which is the local chapter for the Rebel Legion. We're all volunteers. Hopefully, and let's see if a show of hands if anybody has anybody fired a load of Nerf darts at people today? Yeah, there's a few at the back. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So that's what the Rebel Legion booth is doing. So we are actually collecting for Mind, the charity, this weekend. So if you want to go there, fire at either some Mandalorians. Actually, we can sometimes get a few Imperials there as well. And if not, failing that, some Rebels. You can do that. We raise a bit of money for charity, and everybody has a good time. So, yeah. So who are you?
That's been asked many times. I'm Mark from Fantha Tracks. I write for Star Wars Insider and StarWars.com, which is always nice. And a few other magazines. Starburst magazine, if anybody reads Starburst, I write for Starburst. So, but most prominently, I would say, probably for Fantha Tracks, because it keeps me off the streets and out of trouble, as my wife tells me.
It pretty much does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, to be fair, Mark, I think is probably the hardest working man in all of Star Wars fandom. So he writes for Star Wars Insider, everything else. So, you know.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers, see? Yeah.
Thank you.
The wheels are greased. That's how it works.
Consistently greased.
So what are we going to talk about?
I think because we've got half an hour, and we have no trouble talking about Star Wars, we can talk about nothing for half an hour. But I thought with Andor landing on Wednesday, it made some sense to discuss the prequel to Rogue One.
Yeah.
Star Wars doing prequels, who'd have thunk it?
I know, right? Yeah.
There's 4 episodes. There's 3 episodes landing on Wednesday.
Yeah.
People are excited. There's people who've seen bits. I've seen bits. It's very, very good. First impressions. What are you making of this? What's your feel? What's your vibe? Where do you think we're gonna go?
So first thing, hands up. Everybody seen the Andor trailers? Everybody seen that? Yeah, Disney Plus Day and that. So actually, what do you guys think? You at the front. What do you reckon? what do you think of the Andor trailer? You're excited, yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm excited for it.
Can I just say, this is a bit like Robbie at Nebworth holding the mic out to the crowd saying, please sing Angels for me.
Yeah, it's because I don't know the words. But in fairness, actually, yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's going to be really gritty, I think, as well. It's going to be a different kind of pace to what we've had before. And I think also, hopefully anyway, it's just going to flesh out, a character that, we didn't really know a huge amount about Andor going into Rogue One. And even actually by the end of Rogue One, we didn't really know a huge amount about him. So this will really be his story. And I think this story is going to be fantastic.
If you'd been given the option, like Tony Gilroy comes in halfway through Rogue One, because obviously there's difficulties with Rogue One, comes into Rogue One and does what he does, and $1 billion movie comes out the backside of that, and everybody goes, well, we'll never see these characters again, because they all, spoiler alert, die at the end. Don't know why I did the air quotes. They actually do all die at the end.
Yeah, they all do. Yeah.
And that's good for podcasting, it, air quotes.
Yep.
But if you thought you were going to do a character from Rogue One, do you think that Andor Cassian would be the predominant one you would pick?
Yeah, I think so, to be honest, because I think actually Andor, and with Andor comes K2SO, and I think for a big portion of people, I think it's K2SO, but I think everybody's really excited to see, that kind of what's like 6.5 foot tall security droid who's kind of like got a lot of back chat and stuff like that, makes it very interesting. So obviously he's not going to be in the first season, I don't think, but he will come in at some point in season 2. So therefore, it means we've got to watch the whole of season 1, and then we've got something to look forward to for season 2.
I think with doing what they've done and going back 5 years, because you've got that whole run-up to, not only run-up to Scarif and Yavin, which is kind of, within weeks of each other, an important moment in history because it's that first big battle and so on and so forth, Scarif. Also, there's so much history in building the Rebel Alliance. Mm-hmm. You look at Rebel, these are like scattered pockets of Rebels, aren't they? You've got the characters from Star Wars Rebels, they're a pocket, Enfys Nest and her crew, the Partisan Rebels from Rogue One. There's all these people that are sort of scattered pockets of rebellion. Yeah. And Andor feels like it's the show that's going to pull them all together. There's a lot. There's so many stories they can tell just within the 24 episodes there, isn't there?
Well, yeah, from what we see from the trailer, obviously we see like... Mon Mothma, and so there's going to be that whole kind of Senate and imperial governmental kind of side that's going to come into it, and how does like somebody who basically becomes a figurehead of the rebellion, i.e. Mon Mothma, how does she step away and break the chains of the political side, which actually is something that we haven't really seen a huge amount in the Star Wars films really over the 40 years. It gets covered quite a lot in the expanded universe to degrees, but actually on screen, how is Star Wars going to handle proper hardcore politics? That's going to be interesting to see how we make it interesting and exciting, because that's what it needs to be.
When you look back at the prequel trilogy, obviously Palpatine's rise to power, there's obviously politics inherently within that. Yeah. Interesting pathway to power that he had, manipulating everybody. But like you say, in Rogue One, you see the sort of the end result of that, but Andor's going to lead us up to it. Do you feel, as much as learning more about Cassian, learning more about the galaxy, the state of the galaxy, that you're going to see how the rebellion, for example, people like Mothma's got to do that delicate dance between still being in the Senate, not Bail Organa, still being in the Senate, but leading a resistance, a rebellion. Do you think it's going to focus on both aspects almost equally?
Yeah, I think so. You kind of get that hint from the trailer, don't you, really? You kind of see kind of shots from the Senate, from Mon Mothma, and also you see what Andor's up to. So I think they're going to probably have two different storylines that are going to interweave, and they might even affect each other without actually knowing that they're affecting the other story. So that could be interesting. Obviously, it's hard for you to talk about some of this stuff because you have seen some of the episodes. Yes. So without giving spoilers away. But what for you, to that question, what is it that Andor for you is kind of like lighting your fire?
Well, for me personally, Cassian's my favourite character from Rogue One. So because he's kind of like a James Bond type character, he's a spy. He'll do whatever's required. He'll just go for it, get stuck in and do whatever's needed. Yeah. So to follow that character from where he began, he says it in Rogue One, doesn't he? I've been in this war since I was 6 years old. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. And to a certain degree, you see some of that in there, some of the elements of that. But nevertheless, I think it's interesting to see the progression from how you don't just inherently know this stuff. You've got to learn it. You've got to be trained. You've got to come to it. So without saying too much about what's been seen, you see the start of that journey. And, of course, they've been clever, very clever, I think. We've got 24 episodes over 2 seasons. Season 2's breaking them into 3-episode chunks. So year 4 is 3 episodes, year 5 is, or rather year 3 and year 2 and year 1 and such. So that's a good move on their behalf. But just visually, one thing, another straw poll for the audience, Stagecraft has made massive changes to the capacity and the capability to make Star Wars, obviously, of course, with Mando and Book of Boba and stuff like that. There's not an awful lot of stagecraft in Andor. They've built a monstrous set, which they've sadly now struck, but they built a huge set down in Buckinghamshire. Just hands up, I'm assuming, but most people are impressed with stagecraft. I mean, what do people think, yeah? Yeah.
For those who don't know what stagecraft is, it's basically the new kind of technology that Lucasfilm and ILM have been using to shoot films and like series like The Mandalorian. So it's basically like a giant kind of like...
A bit of music is never a bad thing.
Yeah. It's like a giant... Basically,
it's like one of these.
Yeah, it's called a volume because it's basically made up of like a number of TV screens, TV LED panels, which are basically allows them to actually shoot inside... an environment that is actually kind of projected onto like the screen, which means that you don't have to use... You
mean that countdown clock that's very visibly warning us?
But we've only got 15 minutes.
When the trap door opens.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I thought that was a number of people leaving, actually. That's what that was. But yeah, so basically, that's what they do. So, the camera's actually in the environment, so it could be sat where you are, and you could be focusing on us. And obviously, the actual background is the background you're going to see. So it's going to be CG backgrounds and stuff like that. And that makes it very flexible for them to shoot and to light how you would expect to see it without having to go and kind of take away all the green screen and stuff like that. So that's what like the volume is for those who don't necessarily know.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, a Star Wars fan, Fantha Tracks fan.
What was your question?
Oh, I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
It was so interesting, I can't remember. Yeah. But I'm just curious, with Star Wars now, the state of Star Wars now, it feels like I mean, you shouldn't compare Marvel to Star Wars because they're completely different structurally and in every way. But it feels like we're going to get, probably 2 or 3 seasons of Star Wars every year, plus animation. Back in the day, and there's a lot of younger people in the audience which this totally doesn't apply to, but back in the day, you get a Star Wars film every 3 years, and you'd read comics every month, and you'd be consuming Star Wars in a different way. I bang on about this on the show all the time. But do people prefer having regular Star Wars, or do you like having a bit of time to chew it over?
Never have too much. No, to be fair, that's exactly what I think as well. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it swings and roundabouts, isn't it, really? Because in some respects, Star Wars has become the spectacle. It's been the thing that actually everybody gets excited about once every, 5 years or 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And then having it like once every year like we did throughout the sequel trilogy then made it almost like a common occurrence. So actually it was something a bit like Christmas you could look forward to. But like now we're at the kind of...
You look forward to Christmas?
Yeah.
I ain't paid for last Christmas yet.
Well, there you go. But obviously now we're kind of like, we're getting these series and we're getting these TV series throughout the year. So it's not even like we have to wait for one film every year. We're looking at, high-end productions every few months. And, we not only Andor, have we? We've got other series coming up.
You've been into it. Obviously, we've got Acolyte coming. We've got season 3 of Mando. There may be a season 2 of Book of Boba. Let's see where they go with that. We've got Bad Batch season 2.
Yeah.
We've got the 6-part Tales of the Jedi. We've got Young Jedi Adventures. There's lots of Star Wars coming. I mean, I don't know how Hasbro are going to keep up with it all, but...
Well, they never have, so... They're already 6 months behind.
But one other thing before we delve into some of the other shows, we just learned this week that there won't be a Star Wars film hitting the cinema in December next year, which is no surprise to anybody.
No.
It's now 2025. 6-year gap between sort of major projects after the back end of the sequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about it on the show before. I think Obi-Wan was going to be a film. It becomes a Disney Plus show. If Han Solo was pitched now, that'd probably be a Disney Plus show. Yeah. So you're probably not going to get any more spin-off standalones like Rogue One. Do you think that's a good thing that there's a decent gap in the movies, or do you think it sends out the wrong message?
No, I think sometimes a decent gap is pretty good, actually. It gives you a chance to kind of, reset, kind of gather your thoughts, and in some respects, kind of like try and think as to, a new direction. We had the end of the Skywalker saga with the Rise of Skywalker, and then it was like, where do we go now? So this could be somewhere completely different. It could be completely different end of the timescale. It could be, millions of years before what we see in A New Hope. Who knows?
Oh, it's working for Lord of the Rings, I guess, doing Rings of Power so many thousand years before. Prequels are definitely in. Willow's about the only thing that feels like a sequel at the moment. Everything else is a prequel, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Given that we've got the Acolyte coming, that's diving first time live action into the High Republic era.
Yeah.
That's obviously that's a predominantly book and comic thing at the moment. It's phase 2, about to start very, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's a good move in that we're going to get live action High Republic?
Yeah, I think it kind of shows a confidence in the High Republic era. Is anybody reading any of the High Republic books or comics? Yeah, it's a couple of people. Awesome. Yeah. So that I think in itself shows that there's confidence in that area, and also it's fresh storytelling.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's what you want. You want fresh storytelling in a familiar environment. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want, new stuff that is going to engage everybody, 6-year-olds and 25-year-olds and 60-year-olds. We want a little bit of Star Wars storytelling that is familiar to everybody, but also offers something new.
We're all kids in here, though, aren't we?
I think so. Yeah.
So, given that we've got all these new projects coming, like you just said, the show's pitched at kids, like let's say Young Jedi Adventures. We've had it in the past with Forces of Destiny and Star Wars Adventures and all this type of shows. And then you've got something like Andor that's clearly pitched at an older crowd. I'll give you a line from my review, which is out on Tuesday on Fanthetracks. Check it out. But basically, without giving anything away, I sort of say, if you were a kid, if you were like 11 when Star Wars came out, which was like the age George was always kind of aiming for. He said 11-year-old boys back in the day, but 11-year-old kids in general.
Yeah.
I would say Andor is the show that if you got into Star Wars at 11 and you stayed with it, a lot of us bobbled up and down with it, but if you stayed with it, by the time you're about 16, 17, your head would be ready for Andor. It is pitching a little bit older, and it's a little bit more full on. It's quite full on. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's good to mix it up, isn't it? Because, like we say, we're always saying it, Star Wars is for everybody. And look at the room, like you say, you've pitched it as everybody's in here of all sorts of ages. So that can't not be a good thing, can it?
I think it's a brilliant thing. And, I think it's just testament just to see how many of you wonderful people are outside walking up and down who are in costumes and stuff like that. We've got young kids who are, cosplaying as Rey and Mav, and we've got older kids who are doing Jedi and everything else. So it needs to be for everyone, and I think that's the way to do it.
Speaking of Star Wars being for everyone, April next year, a lot of us, and not everyone because there was some trouble with tickets, which was an ongoing issue, but a lot of people will be heading for Celebration next year. In your role at the Rebel Legion, without giving anything away, are you even remotely ready? Are you deep in planning? Where are you with that?
Am I remotely ready? Absolutely not. No, we are planning. So, as you can imagine, something like what we do here for National Space Centre with Amanda Merckx and the 501st, we can kind of put something like that together fairly quickly, a couple of conversations. What we're doing for Celebration, or what we plan to do, because it all kind of comes down to being approved by Lucasfilm and the organisers, Reed Pop, is 10 times bigger. So hopefully we're going to be bigger, there's going to be more things to do, more photo opportunities to have, and also hopefully some fun games and prizes that people can win across the 4 days. So it's going to be fantastic.
And it's Return of the Jedi's 40th anniversary next year.
40th anniversary of Return of Jedi, so there might be an Ewok or two. Not on the stage, luckily, but there's going to be one or two floating around, I think, so it should be fun.
You've done a few celebrations in the UK, and obviously you did Essen as well. Mm-hmm. Good memories from Celebration. What is it that keeps bringing you back?
The merch, I think. But clearly not the bank or the credit card statement afterwards.
No.
But, I think that's the thing. Like, Star Wars Celebration it's in the name. It's celebrate Star Wars. It's to kind of not only celebrate what has come, but it is also to celebrate what's going to come soon or next, but also it's to help celebrate, the camaraderie that people like me and you have with each other. And, the world is such a small place now, and people have friends in every single continent based on Twitter or Facebook and that. And it's an ideal place to come and meet up and meet all your Star Wars friends and family and just have a wonderful time. And, if you are, lucky enough to get tickets, and if they are putting any more tickets on sale at a later date, make sure you try and get some, because I promise you it's well worth at least 1 day, if not 2 or 3 days. It's fantastic. I said that a lot this
That was good.
weekend.
That was good. You remembered the script. I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun. Like you say, you see lots of people from all around the place. Obviously, in London, you see plenty of folks come over from Europe. You see a certain amount of people from the States. You always seem to see more Brits in America than comes the other way. I don't know why that is, but it's just how it flies. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Fantha Tracks are going to be there. We've got plans for things to do, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Warwick Davis, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
We are 6 minutes 10 seconds. Can we vamp for 6 minutes 10 seconds?
Has anybody got any Star Wars questions?
I love it. Go on. Any questions?
I bet they're not going to. Oh, there is one. One at the back. Yes, sir.
What's your favourite film?
Oh, I love it. Love it. Go on, you go first.
Ooh. A New Hope, probably, actually. Here you go. Yeah, partly because it's the original, and I work in film and TV, for those who don't know or listen to the podcast, and it inspired my career, basically. It's what basically got me into kind of, university, making films, working in TV programs, stuff like that. So from a personal level, or from a professional level, obviously, it's the gold standard. And also, I think it's one film that works perfectly because it has an ending, and even if there wasn't another film after A New Hope, it works by itself. So I think that is why. Mr. Newbold.
Mine's the boring answer of Empire Strikes Back.
Of course it is.
But when I went to see it as a kid, I saw it as a double bill with Herbie Goes Bananas.
Yeah.
And when I came out of the double bill, I couldn't shut up about Herbie Goes Bananas. So it took a while, but it came round.
Yeah, and for those who are interested, the Herbie Goes Bananas celebration happens in June next year. So, any other questions? Go on, sir. Right at the back.
Who's your favourite character?
I like these questions.
Yeah, you're my favourite character. Yeah. Who have you come as? There you go. Luke Skywalker from Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's very recent.
That's a deep.
That's cool. Yeah. For me, probably Luke. In the books, maybe Han, but it all kind of depends. How about yourself?
Han Solo. I'm boring. Han Solo. Empire Strikes Back. I'm boring. Yeah. It's Han Solo for me. Well, Lando a close second. Han and Lando, just that whole
but double
Butch and Sundance thing. It's, yeah.
Oh, there's another hand. Yes, go on then, sir. In a Star Wars film, I would probably say, I say Ben Quadanero. I think the pod racer.
What a great answer.
Yeah.
You could have teased it. You could have gone Ben Quadanero.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a great thing about Star Wars, isn't it? I think everybody can agree with that. There's so many different characters that people can latch onto. It can be a main character. It could be a supporting character. It can be a background character. But there's all these characters that people resonate with, and you don't have to be a big fan of Darth Vader, and who would be? Or you don't have to be a big fan of Luke Skywalker and anybody like that. It's entirely up to you. Yeah, how about yourself?
My favourite, if I had to pick one from a film, it would be Qui-Gon Jinn, because I wish we'd seen more of Qui-Gon. So when he turned up in Kenobi, I was very, very happy. But you saying about background, smaller characters, there's a character that has 3 frames in one film.
Yeah.
He's on screen for that. The guy that designed him is in that room over there. Yeah. And there's actually a museum dedicated to this character.
Yeah.
It's Constable Zuvio from The Force Awakens. There is literally a museum. It's called the Zuvium, right? So any character can be... It doesn't matter how big or small, everyone gets some love in Star Wars.
I've been to the Zuvium. You've been to the Zuvium.
I have. I wash my hands afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, it's that size. So, any other questions? Oh, yeah, at the back. Yeah, lady with her hand up.
Favourite planet?
Favourite planet? Well, definitely not Alderaan, I don't think. That's not going to end well. I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, thank you. I would say, well, Tatooine's an easy and obvious one, but I always get a kick out of seeing Coruscant. So I would probably say Coruscant is definitely there. Naboo as well, just because it just looks so fantastic. It was so well realised. But I'm probably going to say Coruscant.
Yeah, to be fair, I was going to say Naboo, actually, because I like the architecture. There's a lot of greenery. Right, there's 2 questions, so let's be quick. And there's 3 questions. Oh, my God, they're all answering.
This is great. We never get this.
You behind, you with your hand up. Yeah.
Favourite scene?
Favourite scene? I love you.
I know.
Here you go. Yours?
No, that was the other half of the answer. No, it would be for me. That's a great question. Favourite scene? Probably is the carbon freezing chamber sequence from Empire.
Yeah.
It probably is. Which of course that's in there. So, but it probably is the same sequence. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say the whole "I am your father" Darth Vader scene. I mean, who could think of like a better cliffhanger than that, really, to be fair. So is that one. Gentleman in the centre, go on then.
What would be the vehicle that you would like to fly or drive the most?
Great question.
Well, I regularly drive an Incom T65, which is better known as an X-Wing. So that's what I generally do. I normally park it on top of a roof here. So how about you? Because, in fact, you do a podcast all about Star Wars vehicles.
We do. On Panther Tracks Radio, we have a show called Start Your Engines, which I do with the fellow at the back who's filming, Paul Naylor. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul.
And we talk about all sorts of ships and vehicles. It's only about 4 episodes in, with a mini episode at Celebration. 45 seconds to go. And great fun. I would say it's boring. I used to write for a magazine called Build the Millennium Falcon, so I would say Build the Millennium Falcon. I would say the Falcon would be my favourite ship. And I was once on telly and I won a quiz with the answer YT1300, so it's close to my heart.
That was a Sky quiz, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, that lasted
Did
long.
you work on that?
I did.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Go on, sir.
That's a good question.
I'll tell you what, if you were going to do a film about any starship, the Millennium Falcon is the one to do it on, really, isn't it? It's got the most personality. In fact, it's got 3 droid brains as its personality.
That's true.
So it's a multiple personality. So, yeah, that would be the one to do it. But if you happen to be near Wales, you should go to the Pembroke Docks because they've got a fantastic exhibit about the Millennium Falcon, and that's where they actually built it back in
79
for Empire Strikes Back, and then they moved it from there to Elstree. So if you're ever in Wales, check that place out.
Definitely. We've run out of time, sadly. Thank you so much, firstly, for being so engaged, and secondly, for not leaving halfway through. So we really do appreciate
Well
that.
done. Well done, you. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you to Victoria on the sound as well. So.
And we're back here tomorrow, same time tomorrow. So if you're still kicking around tomorrow, come and see us. We might even talk about different stuff.
Shall we talk about Star Trek tomorrow? Let's do it. Right.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark panthertracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
And we're off.
Hello, everyone. We're Mark and Mark. We're from Making Tracks. It's a Panther Tracks podcast. So every week we talk all sorts of stuff about Star Wars. We do a podcast, as I say, every week, and we do special episodes, and there's all sorts of cool stuff because there's always stuff happening in Star Wars. But what I thought we'd do today, what we thought we'd do today, was we did a podcast yesterday live on the stage, and at the end, Mark very wisely said, has anybody got any questions? And we had some really good questions from the audience. So we thought today, especially given that we've got 19 minutes and 29 seconds to fill, that we would literally, and you've got your sprinting feet on, haven't you?
Well, I've got my sprinting boots on.
That's good enough. So Mark's going to come into the audience, so basically we're going to go straight into this and see if anyone's got any questions about Star Wars.
Water for me.
Look at this, wonderful. Thank you very much, you're the best.
Round of applause for our very lovely assistant there. I don't even know her name, but she gives me water, so it's all good.
This is good, it's a receptive audience, they clap on command.
Great. Right, so whilst you start thinking for a first question, everybody stick your hands up and I'm going to kind of try and find you. I'm going to ask you a question. So last night...
I'm worried about this.
Just to explain why I'm dressed like this, I'm a member of the Rebel Legion and 501st and Mandalorian Mercs. We are the costume groups outside raising money for charity. And we had a little bit of a social last night here at the Space Centre, which was amazing. And we did a little bit of karaoke. And when I say we did a little bit of karaoke, we did a lot of karaoke. So my question to you, Mr. Newbold,
yes, sir,
is which character do you reckon in Star Wars would be the best at karaoke? And I'm going to...
Who would be the best karaoke Star Wars character?
Who wants to ask a question?
Well, Sice Noodle seems like an obvious answer, doesn't it? That's not fair. You mean of like the well-known familiar characters?
Any
character. I think Jabba the Hutt would be a good baritone.
That works for me.
He'd be pretty good. Barry White, he could sing a bit of Barry White.
Let's get it on.
Yeah, I'm sticking with that. I'm going to say Jabba the Hutt. I think Jabba the Hutt would be a really good singer. On his own, quietly, on his little plinth, boogieing away.
How about you, madam?
I hope he's talking to somebody in the audience.
You don't know Star Wars. Okay, that is a great start. There you go. Round of applause. But the gentleman a couple of rows down did actually have a question. Did have your hand up. So, what?
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader. You reckon Darth Vader? Yeah. What was your question?
Which one's better, Star Wars Battlefront or Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Which one's better, Star Wars Battlefront or Star Wars Battlefront 2?
That's a good question. I'm assuming we're talking about the more recent ones, not the ones from back in the day.
Yep.
The more recent ones,
Yeah, I'd guess so. Yeah.
I'd say Battlefront 2.
Battlefront 2,
That's
yeah,
pretty
because
cool.
you can play with your friends. And what
can.
is Star Wars if you can't play with your friends? So there's a... Oh, look, there's a lady right at the back, just right where I am.
Never seen Mark move this much.
Hello, what was your question?
Well, first of all, I think Lando would be really good at karaoke.
Good call.
Good call, yeah.
Yeah, and question. Probably going to go Star Wars games again, but... Oh, no. What's better between the Millennium Falcon and the Outrider?
Oh, okay, so what's better, the Millennium Falcon or the Outrider? Now, for those who don't know, who probably wasn't born, I know, in around 1980s, the Outrider is another ship very similar to the Millennium Falcon, which was actually flown by a character called Dash Rendar from the games of Shadows of the Empire. So, actually, which is quite convenient, Mr. Newbold, also, with our good friend at the back, Paul Naylor, he hosts a podcast about all the ships and vehicles in the Star Wars universe called Start Your Engines, which happens to drop once a month, isn't it, on Thursday or Friday?
Every 6 weeks on a Friday.
Yeah. So, that's a question for you. Millennium Falcon or the Outrider?
Well, in my heart, I'm going to say Millennium Falcon because, it's the coolest ship ever out of all ships that have ever been built anywhere. But that being said, and we will, Paul, I can see him at the back, we will definitely do an Outrider episode. I'm glad you said that because we're always thinking of new stuff to do. We'll do an Outrider episode because that was a cool-looking ship. And Shadows of the Empire, a lot of old fans think back to Shadows. If any of the kids haven't seen anything from Shadows of the Empire, go and check it out. It's really, really good. But the Outrider was the lead ship of that project. So I'm going to say the Falcon. Even, you mentioned Lando, even Lando's version of the Falcon was really cool, let alone Han Solo's version. But the Outrider, yeah. And you do, just if you ever want to look for Easter eggs, if you watch the Star Wars Special Edition, when you see the entrance to Mos Eisley before you meet Han Solo in the cantina, you actually see the Outrider take off in the distance. So the Outrider is actually in the films. So, yeah, look out for that. But, yeah, that's a good question. I like the Outrider, but it's going to be the Falcon.
Cool, right. Sir, how are you?
Good.
Have you had a weekend?
Yes.
Cool. What's your question?
Who's better, clones or stormtroopers?
Oh, who's better, clones or stormtroopers?
Go on, you go with that first. That's a great question.
That is an interesting question because obviously I suppose it depends on if you mean more effective as a fighting force or if you mean actually better as in like better people to actually have drinks with, which I'm going to say probably stormtroopers because we have a lot of stormtroopers outside and they're all my friends, so they're good fun. But probably as in terms of effective as in fighting forces, I would probably say the clone troopers, I would say. Would you agree?
I would agree. I would definitely agree. Anybody here watch The Bad Batch? Yeah, Bad Batch, awesome, isn't it? So Bad Batch Season 2 is back 4th of January next year. So that gives you a great idea of how, even though they're all the same, they're all clones of Jango Fett, they're all individual as well, because, we all we have different experiences and so on and so forth. So the clones work together really well as a unit. Stormtroopers are well-trained. First Order Stormtroopers are really well trained, but Imperial Stormtroopers are quite diverse. They're from different planets around the galaxy. So I would agree. I would say Clone Troopers are, as soldiers, I'd say they're the best. But that's a really good question.
Yeah, thank you very much for that one. Right, sir, how about you? What's your question?
What do the switches do?
What do the switches do on my chess box? That is actually a very good question. Anybody? No. So actually, yeah. So basically, the chess box for the X-Wing costume. Obviously, this is actually a screen replica of what we saw in the original trilogy. They basically don't do anything because that's unfortunately movie magic. But in the actual Star Wars universe, they would control my kind of life support system. So if I actually had a helmet on, and if I happened to get on and get shot down in space, then this would kind of control my oxygen supply. So there you go. Good question. Wasn't expecting it. I have a young lady right there. She's got another question.
Yeah. More questions we're not expecting.
I'm going to move over to the other side.
If you could be cast as any character in the original series, who would you be?
Okay. Well, did you hear that? If you could be casted in as a character from any of the original trilogies, who would you be? Go on.
Who would I be?
Yep.
Well, slight tangent. I've always wanted to do what Mark does, a bit of cosplay, costuming. I should say not cosplay. It's not fair.
Thank you.
But I'm a weird shape as it is, and I'm too tall for a stormtrooper, and I'm not tall enough for Darth Vader, and it's really expensive to be Darth Vader, and I'm definitely not tall enough to be a Wookiee, and I'm no good on stilts, so I would never know what character I'd want to be. But if I was going to be a character from a group of characters, I'd like to be, you know, the Rebel Fleet Trooper at the beginning of the original film. One of those. I think that'd be really cool.
Otherwise known as cannon fodder to most people, because they don't seem to make it very far, do they? No. So there you go. Me, if I was going to be cast, I would want to be cast as Luke Skywalker. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you want to kind of like spend most of your time on screen, get most money, and also, you know, it's a lot more fun. You know, you're the hero of the original trilogy, so you get to blow up the Death Star. I was going to say you get to kiss Princess Leia, but we won't go there.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, so that would be my answer. So, have you got a question? Go on, then.
This is kind of a battle one. Yeah. Who would win in a fight, Darth Maul or Darth Vader?
Oh, that's a great one.
That's a great one.
That's been seen in comics before. Dark Horse, when they used to have the comics license, did a Star Wars Tales issue where Vader and Darth Maul fought each other. And I guess technically now Maul is back. They could, I guess, at some point have some sort of clash. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. Maul was well trained. He went through a lot in his training. Anakin, as you know, becomes Darth Vader, and he isn't as good as he would have been if he hadn't have lost his limbs and such. I don't know. I guess if you look at it over the top, you'd probably say Vader, because Maul loses a lot. Vader. But I don't know. I think it depends on the environment. That's a good question. It'd be close. I'd give it to Vader, I think.
I would give it to Vader, partly because Vader survives just about every duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And as we know, if we've seen Star Wars Rebels, Darth Maul loses to Obi-Wan Kenobi very quickly. So that would be my answer to that.
If he had the high ground, he'd be okay.
He'd be fine if he had the high ground. He never does, though. So you had a question?
Yeah, what's the most effective battle in Star Wars?
Most effective battle? What do you mean by that exactly? Oh, the best battle. Ooh. What's the best or favourite battle? Sir?
I think I know the angle of the question, and I would say it's the Battle of Hoth.
Yeah.
Because the Empire just completely flattened the rebels and they had to run off. And also, just in the film, what the film has its big action scene right at the start of the film, like Empire. It's a really interesting way of structuring the film. But that's the best. It's the biggest defeat that any side really gets, because Endor, you learned that the battle continued until Jakku, which was a year later, which you learned years on. But that wasn't a complete defeat. Obviously, the Death Star's not so good, especially if you're on it. But I'd say Hoth, Battle of Hoth, I would say.
This is Adam Christopher, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
That's a great guy says here. He says about the Battle of Coruscant.
Uh-huh.
Mark, what do you think of that? I mean, the Separatists lost a lot, but Palpatine was controlling it, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was a bit one-sided there, to be fair. I think the outcome was predetermined.
But visually, you like that one, yeah?
But visually, stunning.
Good choice.
Yeah. Right, got a question here, sir.
Is Mandalorian a good guy or a bad guy?
Is the Mandalorian a good guy or a bad guy? What do you
High five
think?
for that question.
You reckon he's a good guy?
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Matt? I reckon he's a good guy. Grogu? What do you reckon? Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Good guy. What do you reckon? Talk about Mandalorian. Excuse me.
Mandalorian, that's a really good question, really, because he's a bounty hunter. So you kind of think of bounty hunters as bad guys. But he's a great dad to Grogu, isn't he? So you see him grow. You see the Mandalorian grow throughout the first 2 seasons of the show. So I think maybe when it starts, you could say, yeah, he's kind of I'm doing the air quotes. It's not good in a podcast. He's kind of a bad guy. But I think because he grows and Grogu comes into his life and he cares for him and takes care of him, and in Book of Boba Fett, they're reunited. So I think I would say that the Mandalorian now is a good guy, in my opinion. What about you, Mark?
I would completely 100% agree with that. I reckon he is definitely a good guy. But obviously we know not all stories are kind of set in stone, so let's see what happens when we get to season 3 of The Mandalorian, which comes out later.
Not set in stone, unless you're geode. He's set in stone.
He is set in stone, because he is stone. Right, I've got another question here. Hello, sir. How are you?
First, I think General Grievous would be good at karaoke. And second, do you think a wrist-mounted lightsaber would actually be useful in combat?
A whip? A wrist? Do we think that a wrist-mounted lightsaber would be handy in combat? That is an interesting question. Now, obviously, there's been loads of different lightsabers throughout the years. You know, people have got double-ended lightsabers. They've got short Shoto lightsabers, and they also have whip lightsabers. Now, a wrist-mounted one, that would be quite interesting. I suppose that would mean you'd have to get pretty close quarters to fight, wouldn't you? So, But I can see the benefit. It would be a bit like a knife, which sometimes actually is as effective as a long-range weapon. So I would say yes. What about you, Mark?
I think, you know Revenge of the Sith, when Mace and the other Jedi go into the Palpatine's office and Palpatine attacks, and he sort of slings the saber out of his wrist under his cloak. That's almost wrist-mounted, but it's not on when he does it. It slips into his hand. A bit like Lando in Solo with the sabacc chips. So I think maybe if it was for the blade into the hand for quick access, that'd be really cool. So if that's what you meant, then I think that would be a smart move, yeah.
Awesome. Good question. Great answer. Hello, young lady. How are you?
What's the furthest planet away?
What's the furthest planet away? Now, I know for a fact that you are quite up on your galaxy map. So what is the furthest planet away from the galactic core?
From Coruscant?
I guess so. Galactic core.
That is a good question, because you've got, if you look at the map, there's all the stuff, you've got the core and the inner worlds and expansion and blah, 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 right to the outer rim. That's a really good question. I don't think they've ever determined exactly what it would be, but it's going to be... There's probably something in the unknown regions we haven't found yet, but the unknown regions is nearer to Coruscant than where Tatooine and those planets are. So you're looking at way out, bottom left of the map. So I'm trying to think what's beyond Tatooine, but if you look at the map, if you ever see a galaxy map, it's way down the bottom left. That's going to be the furthest away from Coruscant. But that's a really good question.
But most people think it's Tatooine because obviously, if there's a bright universe, bright sensitive universe, Tatooine is the planet that it's most farthest from. A bit like Leicester, but hey, didn't say that. So moving on. Right, next question. Hello, young lady.
Who's better, R2-D2 or Dio?
Who's better, R2-D2 or Dio? I don't have an answer to this one.
Well, Dio's like crazy cute, isn't he?
He is.
And he charges up really quick. I mean, he charged up that. I bet R2-D2 takes ages to charge up. So I like R2-D2 because he was described as like a Swiss Army knife. He could do everything. And Dio can run around in circles really quick, so that's always useful.
He is a archive droid, isn't he? That's what he is in the expanded universe. So actually, he's probably not as exciting, although he is cute. And to be fair, if anybody could bounce around on a single wheel like that, I think you've got to give him props for that, because that's pretty cool. Right, hello, sir. Next question.
Could a Millennium Falcon fit inside an AT-AT?
Funny enough, me and Paul did an episode about AT-ATs the other day, and we were looking at various vehicles that would fit in. And back in the day, we had Bob Breakin here this weekend, who worked for Palatoy in the 70s and 80s. And so they worked on a lot of the smaller vehicles, the mini-rigs. And so some of the mini-rigs would fit in there, but in universe, you could definitely fit speeder bikes in there. I think we determined that AT-STs can fold quite squatly, and that in theory you could fit an AT-ST in there. You couldn't fit the Falcon in there. The Falcon's a bit too big. But yeah, that's a good question, because they've never really utilised the inside of an AT-AT as well as they could, because it's a great vehicle. Just to say, on Fantha Tracks, we had an interview with a designer from PlayStation, and he does his own fan art. And one of the pieces was an AT-AT, a walker, in the ocean. Obviously not mega deep ocean. And at the side by the head, there's a door that opens. You can see all the light flooding out, and there's a stormtrooper leaning out looking at the waves. Check it out. It's a really cool picture. They're very durable vehicles.
Cool. Thank you for that. Good question. Right, next one, sir.
What is the best Star Wars fleet commander in the whole of the franchise?
Oh, best fleet commander in the whole of the franchise. I would say Grand Admiral Thrawn, personally.
That's a good answer. You think it's Thrawn?
Yeah, I reckon it's Grand Admiral Thrawn, yeah.
I'm going to say, because he's a squadron commander, I'm going to say Poe Dameron. I think Poe Dameron was a really good leader. Bit misunderstood, came through in the end. Look at what he did at Exegol. So I'm going to say Poe Dameron.
I'm Anthony Daniels, and you are listening to Fantha Tracks. Well done.
We've got 3 minutes, dude, so
right.
I think we've got time for three more questions.
Right, young lady who just turned her back on me. Hello? Yes, sir. Yeah, hello. Did you have your hand up? Okay, good. Right, okay. Next one. Oh, that young lady did. Right, hello. What's your question?
Oh my gosh, I forgot the question, Dad.
The Imperial Guards.
Which one's better, the Imperial Guard or Darth Vader?
What one's better, the Imperial Guard or Darth Vader?
Who's better in a fight, you mean?
Always.
I think there's a cutscene from Return of the Jedi near the sort of the back third of the film when Vader goes to the Emperor on the Death Star, and those red armoured, the red cloak guards are there, and Darth Vader manages to stop them quite easily. And they're really well trained. If anybody read the Crimson Empire comics from Dark Horse, you learn all about how they trained and got to the level that they're at, and it's quite brutal, the training, what they do. So if Darth Vader can stop them quite quickly, I'd have to say Darth Vader. But I prefer... I could dress as an Emperor's Guard.
You could.
I could do that, so that's a thought.
Got the same personality, I suppose, so you can
Thank
do
you.
it. Yeah, there you go. All right. Right, you had a question, sir.
Tatooine's not the furthest planet from the galactic core. It's actually Exegol.
It's actually Exegol.
I love
there
that
we
answer.
go.
Yeah, that's a
High
good
five.
answer. We'll go with that.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Exegol is the planet that is furthest from the bright centre of the universe. Cool. Next one, sir. And probably, we've got time for two more.
Who would win in a fight, the Emperor or Darth Vader?
Now, as this is an interesting one. Who would win in a fight, Darth Vader or the Emperor?
Well, when the Emperor was training Anakin, he made it really difficult, really hard, because he wanted him to be as strong and powerful and all the things that we know. But at the end of, we just said Return of the Jedi, at the end of Return of the Jedi, Luke's being attacked by the Emperor, and Darth Vader, because it's his son, picks him up and throws him down the lift shaft. I would say, because that's the big fight, I would say the Emperor. What about you?
I'm happy to go with that. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think from a more kind of like psychological perspective, Emperor's got Vader licked.
I love this. From where I'm sitting, it looks like you're sitting on somebody's knee.
I am close, yeah.
Yeah.
But probably from a straight out fight, I reckon it's Vader because he's got all the rage. So
Good
I think
answer.
I'll do it.
Last
There you go.
question. We've got 37 seconds.
Right, next question.
What's your favourite Star Wars duel?
Favourite lightsaber duel in all of Star Wars? I'm going to answer that one first. I reckon that's got to be Episode 1, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn versus Darth Maul in the Duel of the Fates. How about you, sir?
Slight difference, but same fight. Qui-Gon's been defeated. Obi-Wan, the barrier comes down. Obi-Wan's can't handle it, and they have that 15-second fight that's like the fastest, coolest fight ever. And if you ever watch it in slow motion, there's like so many cool things that happen in that fight. So same moment, but I'm going to go Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for those questions. That was really fun. Yeah, well, I think we've pretty much run out of time, haven't we?
We've completely run out of time. The red light's going off. My seat's going to drop out from underneath me like Jabba's palace. So thank you, everyone, for taking part. We really do appreciate it. Hope you've enjoyed it. Come and visit us at Fantha Tracks. Listen to Making Tracks when you get the chance. And enjoy the rest of
your weekend.
Return of the Garrison. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Making Tracks. If you want to be a part of the action and stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com or check out the free Fantha Tracks app for the App Store to follow us on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Fantha Tracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Fantha Tracks intro, Adam O'Brien for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember, tune in to Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sunday evenings at 9 o'clock UK, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. And check out our Fantha Tracks Radio Friday night rotation every Friday night at 7 p.m. UK time for new episodes of The Fantha from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks, Cannon Fodder, and special episodes of Making Tracks. And that's me done for this episode.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.